Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Wednesday, September 14th, and we're getting some interesting price action to start the day. Lots of interesting technical formations playing out. We also want to talk about some on-chain metrics that are looking pretty interesting here, as well as Bitcoin dominance. But before we dive into it, CJ, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, Monty. Thank you. I think something that's going to be very interesting today and a potential market mover is Gary Gensler, SEC chair, addressing crypto in front of lawmakers today at a Senate hearing occurring right now, actually, at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll see if there's some very interesting price action to go along with that. I know last time when they spoke about the regulation of DeFi, that did have certain implications that were kind of muddled in uncertainty. So we'll see. I don't really know what to expect yet, but it's definitely something to pay attention to over the course of today.
Absolutely, CJ. And I think you nailed it right there. I mean, we don't know what to expect, but this is going to be a big event that could potentially be market moving. I think that one thing I would just like to see is some more clarity, perhaps on what may be coming in the infrastructure bill here later in the month. But I think that this is going to provide some clarity that could actually be positive catalyst because institutions love clarity. That's what a lot of them are waiting for to enter. So they could be waiting to time this perfectly. We'll have to wait and see. But how about technically, CJ? We're also seeing some pretty interesting formations playing out here as well.
If you don't mind, I would love for you to start us off with some on-chain metrics, and then we can go into the technicals. I'd like to just have a little bit more fundamental context before we jump into the technicals.
Absolutely. So yeah, we've been talking a lot of like in this last week, kind of about how this period of time differs from what we were seeing earlier in the year. And one thing we've looked to is the long-term holders as sort of a metric to when they start distributing. That is typically when we are entering that last leg of the market cycle. As you can see here, this is the Bitcoin entity adjusted dormancy. This is from Glassnode's on-chain weekly report that came out last night. And essentially what you can look at these spikes as is when the most amount of older coins are being spent. So as you can see here, when we are showing strength at the end of 2020 and into 2021, we had a large amount of distribution of older coins. And these are long-term holders, whales that have been in this market for a long time, distributing into newer retail hands. As you can see here, we had another big spike when we bottomed just a few months ago. But what's most worth noting is what happened here on this massive liquidation event. Dormancy dropped a lot, and that is to be expected because we had an opposite effect happening. It wasn't old coins that were being spent during that period of time. It was new coins, and they were flowing into the hands of the people with the old coins. So as you can see, no spike of dormancy happened at all during the sell-off, and in fact, we are back down to the baseline level of coin dormancy. And here's another metric that kind of shows a similar or pretty much the same principle here. And essentially, these yellow bars represent coins being spent that have not moved for over 1 year. So as you can see, when we were showing strength earlier in the year, there was a large amount of distribution happening. These old coins were being sold into the hands of new retail traders. And that's why we had so much volatility here and really weren't able to maintain these levels. These were retail traders holding for the short term. But as you can see, this was the peak. And since then, we've been steadily trending down, putting in this negative divergence here, even when price was continuing up. Now, as you can see, very few 1 year old coins have been spent over the last 2 months, implying that this is a period of accumulation for whales and institutions alike. So these metrics, I think, really support the fact that this is a very different period of time than what we saw at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. And that even though we've seen some market weakness over the past couple of days, I think it has less to do with the supply and demand mechanics that we're seeing here, and just more to do with retail participation, leverage, and open interest that was just getting a bit ahead of itself here. So overall, I am very encouraged by these metrics, these on-chain metrics, implying that we are still in a period of accumulation. The long-term holders are still betting on positive price action for end of year. And that historically has been a very bullish metric. So definitely thought this was interesting and kind of supports the argument that we are at a unique point in time, and this isn't similar to May of 2021.
Thank you for that context, Monty. Let's jump into some of these technicals. Going to discuss Bitcoin, also take a look at ETH, but I also want to focus on Bitcoin dominance as well. That's been something that we've been talking about a lot recently. So I guess I'll start off here with Bitcoin dominance once again. But when we see this one rally, typically it means that, Bitcoin is going to be in one of two possibilities. It's either going to be leading the charge with bullish momentum, which is kind of what we're seeing right now, or the market is coming down and Bitcoin is the best at preserving losses and the altcoins are, really bleeding out. So those are the two situations that are most likely to occur when we have Bitcoin dominance increasing. And I think we're beginning to see the first one. We're starting to see Bitcoin actually gain a little bit more positive momentum. I think that this Gary Gensler speaking presentation or this hearing is definitely going to play a lot on intraday price action. So I'm going to wait till after that occurs to make any vast decisions. Nonetheless, I think that Bitcoin might give us an entry trigger here towards the end of the day, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But just from a technical perspective, I love this trade as potential mean reversion. We have a green 2 closing above the previous green 1. We have the CCI beginning to turn up and create higher lows. And we have a nice, reasonable target at 43% as a regression to that 20 smooth moving average. So let's go to Bitcoin now, because I do want to highlight some of these buy signals as well, or at least just bullish signals. So we've got a flip on the sequential setup phase to a green 1. We are no longer on that red setup phase. Also, very similar to Bitcoin dominance in the sense that the CCI is beginning to turn up as well. Typically, when we have that during a pennant or neutral consolidation, it means that we are more likely to break out in that particular direction. One of the tells of the beginning of this bottom back in July was an increasing CCI and seeing higher lows in that CCI. Also, one that is not always applicable, but I do like to bring out every now and then, is Kanashi candles. And as you can see, it was a little bit better 20 minutes ago when we were a little bit more over 46K. But you can see we are almost on a green flip in terms of Kanashi candles. We're no longer riding this red trend. It's starting to become much more neutral and potentially reverse. We can see that hinging up in the CCI as well. So it looks like we're seeing a little bit of profit taking going into this hearing here that's occurring right now. But the trigger for me for an entry is going to be a close above this 46,600 level. I think if we get a close above there, then I'll be looking for a continuation to this potentially next Fibonacci level up here at roughly 50K. I don't think, I think it's going to take multiple attempts to break this level. I think we might go here in this range and consolidate a little bit, potentially even retest 42K or these lower levels. Nonetheless, the way that we're setting up right now and the way that supply has been absorbed these last few days, I mean, you can really tell that by these wicks. I think that an auto rally up to resistance at approximately 50K would not be out of the realm of possibility. And sure, there are a couple alts that will probably really do well if Bitcoin follows that trajectory. Nonetheless, I think the way that Bitcoin dominance is postured, Bitcoin is the one that I really want to be in currently.
Yeah, agree with you there, CJ. And touching on Bitcoin dominance there and the alts, what do you, I think the Bitcoin dominance posture is looking very positive in terms of, Bitcoin's dominance regaining some ground here. What do you think that means for some of the alts that have been performing very well over the last couple of months? Do you think that in order for Bitcoin dominance to gain ground, we're going to see some profit taking in assets like Solana or ADA?
Definitely. And we already are seeing a lot of profit taking in both of those assets. That's partially the reason why Bitcoin dominance is already going up. I don't know if it necessarily means that those assets are going to sell off drastically. We've definitely seen that previously, But I compare this, I'm thinking of this time in our market cycle very similar to like the mid fall in 2020 when we first began the Bitcoin run up, because Bitcoin led that charge in terms of capital allocation and the initial parabolic run. It wasn't until after like 20 to 30 to then 40K where we really saw the altcoins run. And therefore, the alts weren't really, it's not like they were selling off during that time and people were going into Bitcoin. They were more just neutral. And then, towards the end, once retail capital really came back into the space, that's when we saw things really going parabolic. So due to the fact that we've already seen that in assets like Solana and ADA and Luna and many of the altcoins, I think that those need to come down a bit. I think they are a bit faded. And I think we're seeing the capital rotation go back into Bitcoin at this particular point.
Agreed with you. And that's such an important part of the entire crypto market cycle. I feel like we talk about this time and time again, but it's so important for Bitcoin to lead the charge because, one, it brings confidence to the market. In order for altcoins to rip and retail to participate, it needs to be a real risk-on environment. And part of that is involved with Bitcoin, just showing positive price action, sustained positive price action with a lot of institutional interest. That tends to be the catalyst to bring in that retail confidence that leads to some parabolic moves in the altcoins. So although we may see some profit taking in assets like Solana and ADA, just given the fact that they've gone so parabolic over the last month, I still think that the fact that Bitcoin is turning up, Bitcoin dominance is looking strong, bodes well for assets like Solana and Cardano at the end of the year, because that's going to bring on this risk-on environment that's going to bring back retail confidence, and they'll be participating, I think, largely in assets like Solana and Cardano. So it is an interesting relationship, and timing the market cycle can be difficult, but I think we're at the point now where some of those alts that have really shown strong price action will see some profit taking that will move back into Bitcoin. But yeah.
Speaking to that, there's a lot of folks. I mean, I'm not particularly enthusiastic to jump back into alts like ADA and Solana or Luna particularly. I kind of want to wait to see how the trend kind of develops and comes down as those individuals who made a ton of money on the way up kind of realize their gains and then potentially shift those gains back into Bitcoin. So I do want to look at some potential levels, though, for both Solana and ADA.
Perfecto. Bill Parker was asking for that. So.
Oh, I see you, Bill. We don't forget about you. Let's begin with ADA here, because this is an interesting one. It's already came back to the 20 smooth moving average. It found support at that previous Fibonacci level at $2. I'm not crazy about catching a falling knife in terms of these alts. I think that individuals are buying this dip pretty strongly, as seen by this selling climax here. And then you had kind of the auto rally back to resistance. I think we could go lower. I think we could definitely go lower back to the $2 level. But that may not happen. It may. That's not really the point. The point is, for an entry, I want to wait for a bullish engulfing candle to look for, a bullish engulfing candle, positive momentum forming at the bottom of a downtrend to indicate a potential trend reversal. And we're just not seeing that. We're still seeing a lot of red candles, a lot of red wicks in a lot of these assets, including Luna. And when you look at how far these assets have diverged from their moving average, sure, it doesn't mean they're bad projects fundamentally or anything. I still think they're strong and I believe in them in the long term, but it just means that there's a lot of risk and a lot of potential profit taking that could still occur. I like Luna. It's a little bit more poised for consolidation here now that we've actually formed a lot of support at the top of that cup and handle pattern. I mean, this is a remarkable asset and how it's performed. Nonetheless, I would look for bullish engulfing candles off of critical support levels. And we haven't really seen that yet. We're still seeing the CCI turn down in Luna. Let's go to Solana. Still seeing a very similar picture in Solana. We have the CCI continuing to make lower highs, giving us a bearish divergence. We have the classic spinning top candle, or excuse me, it's more of an inverted hammer candle at the top of an uptrend, really showing the sell pressure coming down at the top. We talked about that one during the cocktail hour. I mean, this is just such a textbook top in terms of like a fractal and an inverse hammer candle. But you can see these levels. We've tested the 140 level. I still think you're probably going to be able to get Solana down here towards the teens or the 100 and teens level. But being said, if we are to get, a bullish engulfing candle and some continuation of bullish price action, I will still be willing to jump back in. It's just I have to be disciplined right now and focus on Bitcoin dominance and wait for some of those lower levels in the alts.
Absolutely, CJ. It seems to me like there's going to be one more opportunity for, a lot of entries into some of those assets that have really been overextended over the last couple of months here, like Solana and Cardano. So that's going to be interesting to watch for. I too am watching that 20-period smooth moving average for Solana. I think that could potentially be a good place to enter. But I actually, you want to dive into our Doges of the day today, because although I told you I didn't really have one, I do want to talk about one asset today, and it's one I talk about all the time.
Dot.
And that's right, my friend, the one and only Polkadot. And there's a couple reasons why I like it today. First and foremost being this golden cross here. We got the 20-period SMMA crossing over the 200-day smooth or simple moving average. And that's historically or typically a very bullish indication here. And what's more is this level here I've had marked as a breakout level for a while, about $35. As you can see here, we retested it after kind of breaking out of this cup and handle formation, but then that big liquidation event drove us back down to the moving average. The fact that we were able to hold this moving average was very encouraging for me. And now that we're showing positive price action subsequent to that bounce, I think bodes very well for some nice positive price action here for DOT. So we're reaching breakout levels here. I think the next level could potentially be here at the all-time high at about $48. So after this episode, I'm going to go ahead and increase my position a bit with a goal of taking profit when we reach this previous all-time high of $48. I know that we talked a lot about Bitcoin dominance in this episode and how some alts may come off, but I think just looking at DOT from a technical perspective, it's looking very strong right now, and it's less overbought than a lot of the assets that we have talked about previously, like Solana and Cardano or Atom and HBAR. DOT is still off its all-time high, so I think it could be one of the next to break into new all-time high territory, and for that reason, I am picking it today as my Doge of the day.
Thank you for that. I'll pick a Doge as well because there's some interesting assets that are actually showing some strength. If we are to talk about potential alts right now or potential alt picks for the next month or going into the fall and winter season, I think it's important to look at alts that are maybe not have gone entirely parabolic, but are still showing strength. I think DOT is a great instance of one of those and some solid fundamentals. I mean, it's a great project. I think it's up there just as good with Cardano, but it just has not seen the hype. Maybe they need a little bit more of an eccentric leader to get that price going, but maybe a little bit more camels or something like that. But enough joking around. Let me get to my Doge of the day, which is going to be an asset that has shown that pretty resilient strength, and that is ACN, Anchor. So this is, a classic cup and handle pattern that is a little overbought on the CCI, but nonetheless, it looks like we're beginning potentially an exponential trend. This is one that I think has really good fundamentals, and I'll go into that in just a moment. We are running into a bit of resistance here at $4, but there is not a lot of resistance up here. And when you look at assets like Luna and other exceptions that have just blown past their previous all-time highs, this is an asset in the Solana ecosystem, in the Solana DeFi ecosystem, that I think has a lot of potential. And it hasn't quite mooned yet, but it is showing a lot of strength thus far. So I want to go over to the Solana ecosystem as well and just take a look at Anchor. because it is one of the savings protocols in the Solana ecosystem that is somewhat similar to Comp, but it's a very interesting project, and anything on the Solana ecosystem right now, I think, is really getting eyes under a microscope and might be an interesting potential play. But Anchor is definitely one that I'm going to be watching, somewhat similar to Serum and Band Protocol. I want to pay a close attention to some of these. Audius is another one. I want to pay attention to those, 3 to 4 really interesting assets within the Solana ecosystem that could potentially provide a lot of value for the future of DeFi on Solana.
Great pick, CJ. I love it from a fundamental perspective, but technically speaking as well, that's one of the more true cup and handles I think we've seen in the space. We had a lot of W patterns that we kind of marked as cup and handles, but that is a really true cup and handle, and it seems like it's maybe a week or two behind the rest of the Solana ecosystem in terms of price action. So that could be a diamond in the rough there. Nice pick. But I think that's all we got for today. I want to catch what Mr. Gensler is talking about here and see how that affects the market. So if you guys want to hang out, watch that. We'll be in the crypto room all day today, and we'll be discussing the implications of Mr. Gensler's comments. You can come try out the crypto room for just $1 for the first month at the link below me here, marketrebellion.com/try crypto. And if you're looking for a brokerage to trade your crypto assets, investvoyager.com. They allow you to trade 60 plus assets commission free. You can earn up to 10% interest on USDC, a stable coin, and up to 12% interest on my Doge of the day, which is DOT. And if you go over there, use code REBEL25 when you sign up for $25 free in Bitcoin. And yeah, that's about all we got for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. CJ, I'll toss it to you.
Yeah, just last thing, we're really excited. 11 more days until the new platform officially launches. Monty and I just got credentials to the dev environment, so we've been playing around in that sandbox and whatnot and really enjoying it. But we're really excited for that launch, and stay tuned for that on the 25th. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a great day wherever you are in the world. Good luck, and God bless.